Hi everybody, Mike here, also known as Wolffield Diver. Thanks for watching. This is my long distance flight that I did recently in the Arizona desert. I flew out a little over 2 miles in the late afternoon, close to sunset. Anyways, we're going to fly to that very far peak at the far distance. I'm using the Phantom 4 Pro drone here, using the Plus controller, and I do put on some parabolic antenna boosters here. The distances, altitudes, and batteries shown below are approximate. They're not exact, but they're pretty close. This first video here is 4 times real time, so it's sped up a little bit. I flew out to this first spot. This is about as far as I've ever flown before in this canyon. I stopped the drone for a few minutes, and what I'm doing is taking a look at all my settings, battery, adjusting the camera, exposure, and then I proceed on, flying in program mode and slowly ascending and heading towards that far peak in the distance. When I got over this little rise here, this little bluff, I stopped again, once again, just stopped to see where I'm at. I've never been out this far, and basically turned around and looked down and took a look to see how high I was above the ground. I had pretty much constant altitude, but the ground had been rising under me, so I wanted to see how close I was to the ground. Way back in the distance is where we took off, back there in the shadow, and that's Superstition Mountain in the far distance. This area is known as Bulldog Canyon. So after taking a survey to see where I'm at, I sort of look around, looking towards the east now to take a look and see how close I am to this ridge. And then we're going to proceed on with the rest of the flight. I'm just aligning the camera here, taking a look at some camera settings, and we're going to continue on. We're about 1 mile away now from the takeoff point and slowly rising. Remember, all the altitude distances are based off the home point. Signal strength was actually pretty good all the way out here. I had signal strength all the way out to the distance here. It was battery power that concerned me. Every periodically I stop and take a look at where I'm at, look at my battery power, and look at my signal strength, and then I proceed on. So I got just short of this hill here, and was getting concerned about the battery power. I flew out to my max distance reach, 11,551 feet, a little over 2 miles. Then I started backing it off slowly, started moving backwards and upwards. I started getting messages about having barely enough power to return home, so I decided to hit the return to home button, and it started the return to home sequence on its own. I'd set my return to home altitude pretty high, over 600 feet, just to make sure I cleared everything. Hindsight 2020, if I did this flight again, I wouldn't set that return to home altitude so high. That would give me a little more distance range on my distance on my battery before I'd have a warning to come home. Now I decided to put it in sports mode, and I'm not used to flying in sports mode, so you'll see here I get a little squirrely every once in a while. I decided after a while I don't know how to fly this thing in sports mode very well, so I believe I put it back in return to home. I'm taking a look at all the settings again and the battery power, also filming. Then I decide to put it in return to home mode, go home, and let it fly itself for a little bit. But then I realized that's just too slow. So I take over in sports mode and press on manually. Slowly descending and flying forward, heading back to the home point. That's pretty much it. Reached just over 2 miles, but interesting enough, when I got back to home point, I had around 40% worth of battery power. So it tells me that that return to home indicator was conservative. I had plenty of signal strength. It was just battery power that concerned me when I was out that far. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you like, subscribe.